Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is Eleanor White. We're going to talk about the crime of gang stalking. Hello, Eleanor. How are you?
Hi, Clay.
Nice to have you on again with me, dear. It's been a few years, hasn't it?
Yes, it's a privilege. Always glad to help out someone like yourself who speaks the truth over and over, regardless of consequences.
Well, regardless of consequence, we've just been talking about that. It's kind of interesting. I said the problem we have is, how do you fight evil without becoming evil yourself? Let's just take my case, for instance. People that believe I'm a threat to the community some way. Well, because you talk about the banks, you talk about the Jews, you talk about the Christians, you talk about everybody. Oh, whose side are you on? And that's what those people are potential for being recruited for something called gang stalking. Now, John Nutter's been on my show a number of times, and he talks about that too, called gang stalking. Now, he thinks it's more organized, but the way you describe this, you say you're grieved knowing there are people walking around your community who enjoy peaceful, fulfilling lives and good relationships, in spite, in your opinion, they're being dangerous. You're distressed that old-fashioned justice in which the community meted out its own version of punishment is now out of favor with most people. You begin to wonder if the current state of the official justice system, there might be ways to restore true community-level justice. And you reflect that ordinary citizens, including yourself, occasionally experience really nasty breaks, like the neighbor who drives you up a wall with his leaf blower, co-workers who don't like someone who made their life on the job hell with pranks, mechanics who fix your car and bring something expensive in the process, and some idiot whose noisy activity makes your planned visit to the park and on a holiday into hell. What do those people turn into?
Well, first, Clay, you have to remember that booklet is not written for the active members of the Truth Movement, because most Truth Movement members already know about the worldwide nature of government-sanctioned harassment, which is what this is, to control and punish. So that book sounds a little bit mild to someone like yourself. This is how people, ordinary citizens, are recruited. They can't start off saying that they're being hired to harass innocent people, because many would not join. But if it's tied to patriotism and community safety, well, many will come in, and that's how it works.
You say government sanction. What does that mean? I mean, this is, did the neighborhood watch somehow turn into a let's report to your neighbor, let's keep an eye on them, they may be abusing their children, they may be doing this, they may be using drugs, they may be plotting, they may be voting for Ron Paul. What makes someone an enemy today of the government?
Let me put it this way. We don't have any evidence tying government directly into the chain of command of the organized stalking organization, which is throughout the industrialized world. But what we do have over and over and over are bizarre denials from each and every official targets try to approach or help. And even the non-governmental agencies like the National Center for Victims of Crime, who keep telling targets, they don't tell targets anything, they simply don't respond to their complaints about stalking by groups or criminal harassment. So government can be proven to be in artificial denial. It's statistically impossible that every person working for government throughout the industrialized world deny this crime with almost exactly the same wording, which is stalking by groups never happens. It only happens from one stalker, and if you complain about stalking by groups, you need to see a psychiatrist. And that's consistent at every level of government. Now, we have police officers and doctors who acknowledge that this is a very real crime, extremely dangerous. So that's where things stand with this particular crime. What this is basically Hitler's brown shirts undercover.
Hitler's brown shirt. What you are describing, it happened before Hitler. It happened in the Soviet Union. When the communists took over the Soviet Union, I can't just sit back and watch something like this happen and not try to do anything. So how do we deal with this?
Well, as far as we can see from our viewpoint, which is on the receiving end, basically all organizations have been co-opted somehow. Government, non-government, charity, anyone you approach and talk about organized stalking immediately goes silent and tells you to leave or just won't talk to you at all. So This is a very wide co-opting, and as I say, the purpose appears to be control and punishment, and particularly neutralizing resistance too. That's probably the ultimate reason for having this organization set up.
Gang stalking, where is that kind of thing coming from?
Well, I wish we knew. We only know up to the community level stalkers because we have an excellent investigation by private investigator David Lawson, who actually infiltrated and rode with the groups. By the way, this booklet I keep talking about and Clay talks about is at the website stopos.info. That's STOPOS. That's Oscar Sierra. Stopos.info. Info, not com or net.
Right.
And in there you'll see the investigation by this private investigator who infiltrated the groups. So he was only able to get up as far as the community level leaders, and he found hints of higher, these leaders would sometimes drop hints that they worked for the American government. However, it's only a hint. It isn't anything that has been verified at this point. But I also ran into a lawyer who helped me prepare to go public, to go out in the streets and do some picketing. And it turned out by accident that she represented one of the stalking supervisors in that city, Hamilton, Ontario, who was actually running the stalking, and he wanted to get out. But you can't get out conveniently. And so they put him in the Ontario Hospital for the Criminally Insane, and it took her 4 years to get him out under a new identity. But she did say that this fellow worked for the American government, even though he was operating in Canada. So these are anecdotes. They aren't courtroom proof, but they are certainly interesting.
Now, tell me, I do this in two sections, two half-hour sections for YouTube, and we got about 10 minutes left on this half. But tell me how you got in there. Tell me, first of all, give me a little bit of your background. Now, I understand why they're after me. I mean, I've had Randy Weaver over here. I've had the Branch Davidians on my show. I've had Leroy Schweitzer. I've had Ogreich. I've had Jack McLam. I've had just about everybody on my show. So I understand why they come after me, but why did they come after you? How did you get interested? When did they start coming? I refer to myself as the canary in the coal mine. If they're going to come after me today, they're going to come after you tomorrow. Tell me about your situation.
Well, I was a middle-aged, low-level, not supervisory, working engineer in Toronto in 1980, and then all of a sudden one day my life turned upside down, and I had no peace day or night anywhere after that. And I don't know why I was targeted, and 70% of the targets I network with don't know either. Some are whistleblowers, some are involved with inheritance disputes, marriage breakup, things where the stakes are high and somebody's likely to be angry with somebody. That's what can get you into this, but the majority of us do not know, and our take on it is, this is only our theory, but it appears that the entity that's running this operation has a very important role for this organization in world affairs. So while we are not individually important at all, the organization is very important to the criminal elite. And you have to remember that in other operations like MK Ultra or COINTELPRO activists were targeted, but they weren't particularly influential people. They were simply fighting for a cause. In MK Ultra, they specifically chose nobodies because nobodies don't have the resources to put on a defense or expose the crime. So that's how I got into it. It suddenly started one day, 32 years ago, and hasn't stopped. And many of our members, if not most, this continues for life. We've had people harassed on their deathbed in hospital, suffering from cancer and dying. The harassment there. And the way the individuals the target comes in contact with are co-opted is they are told the target is a criminal, a dangerous criminal, and their favorite is a child molester. And they use the child molester lie on female as well as male targets.
They've done that to a number of people. I've even had somebody that I've never met accuse me of being a child molester. That's what they do. You're an informer, you're a snitch, you're a shill, you're a child molester, you're a biker,
Yeah, that's what they do. I've had people spit at me calling me a child molester, and I've never even had such inclinations ever. I mean, why would I be interested in a child?
Yeah, I've been told I have it in big letters on my file, will not cooperate. So much for me, the bullshit. Or, These are our neighbors. The people you're talking about are people who live in the same town with you, aren't they?
Absolutely, but again, they are fed lies. So at that point, once the lie has been passed on, you are no longer seen in the same way. You're not a nobody anymore. You're a big threat to the community, and they feel they're helping.
There's no way to stop this. I mean, nobody's ever called me. Here's my phone number. Here's my website. Here's my email. Nobody has ever called me to ask any questions, confirm anything.
Well, absolutely. There's no appeal to this. It's all done in secret, and that's why it continues. It also continues because the average citizen does not believe that a large organization would harass somebody they see as a nobody, and that's.
I've wondered that too. I'm just an old biker from Texas. You know, why would they be interested in me? Why would they be afraid of me?
Yeah, I know the experience. It's the same for most of us. But by the way, I should mention that book at stopos.info. There is a comic version of it, which some people might find informative or a little easier than reading text. But it's a comic strip which covers the same material. It's clickable right from the same place where the book itself is.
I own the first chapter here. What kind of countermeasures? How has this affected your income? You wrote a book about it. By the way, that's all linked up on my site. stopos.info is linked up on my site. What kind of relief have you been able to find? What kind have you had any kind of support? Anything happen?
Well, the only way a target can get support from other people is to talk about this, and it's as simple as that. This is the normal human condition. There are electronic through-wall technologies which can make you very uncomfortable, keep you awake all night, and stuff like that, and those you can get minimal relief through ordinary electronic shielding, but it's not really cost-effective because even if you spend thousands of dollars on the shielding, it will not stop it completely. So what I did when I was working, I'm retired now, but when I was working, I just toughed it out. It was not easy to hold a job under those conditions, but I prayed to God and just found out that I could in fact still function after being awake all night for years on end. As long as I lay down quietly in the dark and didn't move, that would be enough to get through the next day. It wasn't easy. And of course the sabotage they did on the job, I had to resign one very good technology job. The rate of sabotage got to the point where I couldn't even fix someone's machine. I had to tell them how to do it. If I put so much as a finger on it, the next morning that machine will be totally trashed when I came into work. So yeah, it does affect your ability to earn, and I had it pretty good because I was able to work up to within 3 years of retiring. But many people are put out of work permanently because the harassment is that bad. The electronic weapons I speak of, the ones that can be actually had by anyone with a cache, are listed in that booklet as well. So if anybody's interested in what they are and how they work, that's explained in the booklet. And on that site I have a contact us where people can email me and I can give them more detailed information.
All right, they can get through you. There's email links on your...
Yes, on the stopos.info website, if you scroll down, it says Contact Us, and it's clickable. You click there, and that'll send me an email. We have several booklets available for targets on how to cope with this and what has been tried and what worked and what didn't work and so on. I tend not to make that list public because it doesn't help in convincing the public there is a crime going on. Some of it is very technical, so those booklets are not particularly good for the public, although I don't mind the public seeing the booklets. But if somebody emails me, I'll send them the links to those specific booklets.
I think people need to know about this.
Are you being stalked, harassed, and your privacy violated? Has your work and personal life been sabotaged or ruined and you don't know why? Are you experiencing trouble with your phone, email, and internet services? Are you being denied help from governing and city officials? You are not alone.
As many as one person per 100 are being targeted in North America.
Same tactics get thrown on this list, and
technological and community-based harassment. Gang stalking or group stalking, groups of people stalking individuals.
street harassment.
This is exactly what is happening to me.
Gang stalking is alive in this country, and the politicians are denying that it exists.
There are literally thousands of websites providing information about these crimes.
Sites that explain the truth about what's going on.
These are many sites that you should go and check out. Go to gangstalkingworld.com, go to stopcovertwar.com, go to YouTube and check out Organized Stalking Informers.
Wake up! All over the world, people are sick of being subjected to organized gang stalking. Across the globe, people are watching in communities and neighborhoods. People watching, people listening, people sharing information, people filming individuals and vehicles, documenting, exposing organized harassment activities. Organized gang stalking and community harassment is a crime. There is nothing lawful about organized gang stalking and community harassment. It doesn't matter who's doing it or what their profession may be. All across America, people have decided enough is enough. The targeted are now targeting. People have decided it's time to crack the whip on organized gang stalking and community harassment. We will be watching, recording, exposing, and punishing those involved. Do your part to destroy organized gang stalking today. For more information, visit Organized Stalking Informers on YouTube at www.youtube.com/OSINFORMERS.
Like I've said, everybody, just about everybody, is Eleanor White. Eleanor's from Canada. We're talking about the crime of gang stalking. Her website is http://stopos.info. And now you're trying to get this information. You're doing that now, but where do we guide people? Where do we tell people about this? When you're, I've had so many patriots come in and tell me, but everybody thinks I'm crazy. Nobody wants to talk to me. Everybody's afraid of me. Everybody's putting me down. It's peer pressure.
Well, that's quite true. One thing I've learned in doing activism for the past 16 years is that, and this would apply to the patriots as well, you don't give your listener the whole story on the first encounter. If you try to do that, they will tune you out and never give a second thought to what you were trying to get across. So what you do is you design little 30-second spiels in which you give just a small nugget of the full story, and you discipline yourself to leave it alone at that. You don't go beyond that nugget in the first encounter. That creates an appetite in your listener or reader for the next nugget. It has to be done in steps. You can't do it all at once because you'll just turn your listener and reader off. And I have a lot of trouble selling that idea to my fellow targets of organized stalking because they're suffering and they want to shout the whole thing to the world, and so they turn a lot of people off. But that technique works very well. And after the 30-second spiel, then maybe give a link to a show like yours where people can hear it spoken. And hearing something spoken is nice because they don't have to read anything. People hate reading. So you give them a 30-second spiel, you toss them a link to a radio show, and then from that point on, it's up to the creator.
Is it different in Canada and the United States? And I want to talk this segment too. I want to talk about this electronic harassment. How are they doing that? How are they attacking us?
Well, there are 5 proven technologies listed in the booklet, and the first everybody knows about now, and that's the fact that you can see through walls with radar. You cannot see through it with infrared, by the way, because an infrared viewer only gives you the surface temperature. It doesn't give you the temperature of things on the other side of the walls. If there's a thin curtain, the infrared might pick up an image, but generally speaking, it takes radar image through a wall. So that technology is in use in airports, and everybody knows about it. Another one that's very, very disabling, and one of the most disabling, is the old Russian medical device called the Leda machine. That's over half a century old, and it's very simple. The unit was designed to simulate rocking a patient to sleep with a slowly pulsing radio signal. Nothing more fancy than that. And I talked to one of the scientists who tested a copy of that for the American Marine Corps. Eldon Bird was his name. And Eldon told me that if the pulse rate was speeded up from the slow sleep rhythm, it could also keep people wide awake. And so any wall on the target's home that is not fully aluminum siding, for example, can pass this signal. And someone next door to you can keep you wide awake with this device, and no one will ever know why. You just can't sleep anymore. There is another technology which the U.S. Army called voice-to-skull, or V2K. That's Victor, then the numeral 2, then kilo. V2K, voice-to-skull, which is based on the discovery in World War II that one radar pulse, one pulse coming out of a radar transmitter, will cause a click in the hearing sense of anybody in line with the beam. And what you can do is control how the clicks are transmitted using a voice or music waveform, and you can literally transmit voice or music into somebody's head from a fairly good distance because microwave can be focused fairly well, certainly next door. And so you can drive people crazy with voices, and it's not audible voice. No one standing outside the home is going to hear anything. It's just where the microwave beam hits the skull of the target. And with the through-the-wall viewing, they can tell where the target is, and particularly when the target is in bed, and then keep the target awake all night with voices and other sound effects. And that can be multiplied, made even worse, if you take today's subliminal sound technology, which is called silent sound. And that, too, isn't magic. It just takes a hypnotist's voice way up into the upper reaches of your hearing range. And so you'll hear a tiny little warble or hiss, and you won't be able to consciously understand what the words are, but your brain will, because your brain has the ability to decode that signal. So you can combine voice-to-skull and silent sound and hypnotically manipulate a target year after year, and the target's personality and ability to hold a job, for example, can be just destroyed. And no one, even the doctor who's looking after the target, will know why. And so that's a very invasive type of technology. There's another technology which hasn't been announced as on the market yet, but it's in the book. It's called EPIC, and it's a way to make people lose their balance. And lots of targets experience losing their balance. And I forgot to mention about the silent sound. Lots of targets, myself included, hear that high-pitched whine or warble or hiss, which is characteristic of silent sound hypnotic commands. And so those are some of the things that are available. They're not classified. Anybody with the money can have them, and they can really mess up your life. And of course, even something as simple as if you live in an apartment building particularly, as someone with a microwave oven with the door taken off, if they put that on the other side of your bedroom wall, they can give you all the disabling symptoms of heavy microwave exposure, and you won't be able to prove it unless you realize what's going on and you have a microwave detector right there, and most people don't. So that's a rundown on the electronic harassment side, and these things are through wall. And the only thing that will stop them is a completely metal wall. Just putting aluminum foil on your window won't do it. It has to be the entire wall, including the window.
Now, all the time we've been doing this conversation, I've been dealing with what we refer to as trolls on the internet. They come into the chat rooms and they try to disrupt anything they can. They want to accuse me of this, accuse me of that, accuse me of this. Exactly what you're talking about, happening in real time right here on this thing, where you can see the conversations up on the shows that we record on YouTube. It's been going on this whole time. I mean, what are they gaining from this? It doesn't, obviously it don't affect me. I mean, once the show's over, it goes up. It's up on my website.
What they're gaining is control of the world. This is one more control mechanism out of the hundreds they have working in other areas.
They want to control a small talk show here with, well, it gets a lot of coverage. We are going out on a number of different stations.
Well, of the roughly 60 Patriot Show hosts I know about, 21 have written me and say that they've had a number of the symptoms. And one thing I do notice, though, is that if you have access to a microphone, you don't get the full shot. You get some, but not everything. The main thing you get is interference with your show. But what we get is horrible, painful. The technology can cause terrible pain, for example, beyond just keeping you awake. I've had some shots of pain that I felt like I was going to come apart. They were so bad. And, of course, they go in for things like entering your home while you're out, sabotaging your belongings, leaving cigarette butts around and pennies around. They have been known to torture pets while you're out and sometimes kill them, cut their throat, leave them on your doorstep, or ditto with wildlife. One fellow got home to find his dog blind and the dog's water dish filled with antifreeze. So these are really nasty people. They want to do everything they can that will torture you, but which you can't seek help for on the outside. For instance, one person who had their cat's throat cut went to the police, and the police said, well, we think you did this yourself just to get attention. So this is how bad it is. It's a real serious thing, and when you move from one country to another, it does not stop. Now, there have been a few who moved to rural areas in South America, and they reported back that the harassment was very low there, and in fact, it might have not been due to the organized stalking so much as the fact that they were a foreigner living in a rural community. But they stopped communicating, so we don't know if it stopped for sure.
I won't leave this country. I won't do that. And I'm not even sure I could now.
Well, I understand. I mean, the American ideal and Constitution is something worth fighting to the death for. There's no question about it.
Well, I took an oath to defend the Constitution when I was 17 years old. I didn't say anything about presidents.
That's right. I took the same oath. I was born in America, and I moved to Canada because I was offered a very attractive job, and then I decided to stay. But I took the same oath.
I took it seriously. Did nobody else read the Constitution? I mean, when the ABC News called me asking me about the militia, they said, well, they're talking about the militia again. I said, what part of the Second Amendment don't you understand?
That's a good question.
It's hard for me to conceive. I mean, I know that the bankers control this. They control the police. They control the police and the law enforcement, FBI and all that is there to cover for the bankers. I can't see, from your background, your history, I can't see why they would target you. Why would they do that? I can see why they go after me. I present a danger. I got a microphone. But why would they go after just average, everyday people? I mean, how is it sanctioned? I mean, how are they sanctioned? How are they choosing the people that they go after? Is it just anybody that gets a grudge? Somebody got a grudge with me? So, oh, you're a farmer, you're this, you're that, you're that, you're a...
Well, it can be anyone. As I say, there's a chapter in that e-booklet about David Lawson's investigation, and he explains in quite a bit of detail how people are recruited and how targets are chosen. But the bottom line is the organization, this huge punishment and control organization, is very important to the criminal elite. And according to David Lawson, quite a few targets are chosen simply to keep this group active and trained up.
These same groups, are they targeting like the Tea Parties, the Occupy movements? I mean, the only thing you hear about the Occupy movement on the internet.
Yes, actually, one of our colleagues is in Vancouver, BC, which is just over the line from Washington State, and she hangs out with a lot of activists, Occupy types and others. And she reports that, yes, a great many of their members have become targets once they started doing their activism.
The resistance to this. I mean, we are fighting on a number of fronts. We can help on that on education. If somebody becomes educated here, somebody is aware, if they start experiencing some of these symptoms, and it could be just gossip, could it? I mean, that's the way it would come up as, oh, well, just a little gossip. You did this or you did that, and we're going to hold you responsible for it. Or we think you did this, right?
That's right. And this isn't gossip so much. It's intentional lies, with the object being to motivate people to harass you. And everybody gets into the act. I mean, every trade, every profession, housewives, the homeless, seniors, little kids, as young as grade 1 are also used. Anything at all, any person at all that is capable of harassment is recruited. And
are these just mean-spirited people? I mean, that's what it feels like. All the people that come in here griping about my radio show or what I did 40 years ago it just seems so trivial, so shallow. I don't know what I just can't. Maybe sometimes, Eleanor, I wonder if perhaps Americans are just too stupid to govern themselves. Maybe people in the world, maybe Canadians, maybe Europeans are just too stupid to govern themselves.
Well, I think, Clay, that they're capable of governing themselves. But what they are blind to is the fact that there are organized criminals who will work over generations to take their freedom and their resources from them. They can't see that. They're blinded to that, and I don't know why.
They have, what I'm telling people is anytime a communist regime, a tyrannical regime, whether it's fascism, communism, doesn't really matter, two wings of the same bird like Republicans and Democrats, conservative and liberal. It's just hard for me to figure out how do we combat the people being petty here. I mean, when our survival is like anytime a communist regime takes over, they go after the farmers first, intelligentsia next, and veterans and law enforcement that are loyal to the old regime. That's happening in America right now. They're going after the Oath Keepers, they're going after the militias, they're going after anybody that's taking a little bit different view. Divide and conquer is their main weapon. It's what they do to us. And these groups fit perfectly into that, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the best thing that can be done against organized stalking and all of these other problems you just mentioned is educating the public. And I can't think of any better activity, any more effective activity. It's very hard to do because it's expensive, but you're doing it, and much to your credit.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's I think it's important to be done. I think it's we got to be able to look at these things without being blinded by dogma or the attitude, well, that's the way it's always been done. You know, the world's flat. You know, we're going to really give you a hell there if you don't believe the world's flat.
That's true. And of course, a lot of it is mental laziness. People don't want to look into new information. They've got their information, thank you, and they're getting on with their lives. It's hard to persuade them. That's why I say the way to do this, I've discovered, is to leave very small nuggets of information. You don't dump the whole story in their lap because that'll give them an excuse to tune you out. You just give them a hint and then walk away, and that's the way to plant a seed.
They have refined the art of slavery today, that the slaves don't know they're slaves.
Well, I agree, and of course that they have those pastors that are ready to tell their congregations to go to the FEMA camps.
They are criminal for that, and I don't even understand why people need that kind of control over it. And it seems like they need that. They want to be telling them what to do and following directions.
They'd rather just remain ignorant.
Well, they say ignorance is bliss, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Eleanor, thank you for being on my show. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I appreciate what you've gone through.
Well, thank you, Clay. We need more people like you.
All right, dear. We're out of time here, so thank you very much. I'll have you back on sometime.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, dear.